Greg Palast, the investigative reporter for The Guardian, The New York Times, etc., author of The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, his latest film about the latest attacks on the right to vote, Vigilantes, Inc., America's New Voter Suppression Hitmen, narrated by Rosario Dawson and produced by Martin Sheen, debuts on September 6th. And I will be in Los Angeles for a big hoop-de-doop around this movie on, what is it, September 8th, Greg? Am I remembering correctly?
Sunday, September 8th will be our red carpet with Thom on the carpet.
That's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. So, Greg, welcome to the program. We're back. GregPalast.com, of course, the website. Your most recent piece really caught my attention. Are you ready for the Quiet Coup? What is the Quiet Coup?
Sir, it's the arcane concept of certification of the vote. Go back 4 years into ancient history when a guy named Donald Trump called up the Secretary of State of Georgia and said, find me 11,780 votes. Now, that's a crime, and Trump was indicted. Well, guess what? The Georgia legislature and the Georgia State Board of Elections, which is a brand new board, their Secretary of State, who wouldn't do the nasty for Trump, he was removed from the state elections board, and they have a new highly partisan board. They basically voted to decriminalize this type of action. Specifically, what Trump and his attorneys wanted the state to do was not certify the vote count in Fulton County, which is Atlanta.
Right.
Well, guess what? They've now passed a new rule saying we will not certify a county's vote unless we believe this partisan board, with basically controlled by MAGA nuts, this partisan board, if they find that a county did not conduct a reasonable inquiry into their vote process, and that's up to this right-wing board. And one of the things to note is that if you wonder, well, what does that mean, reasonable inquiry? The answer, they gave us the answer the very next day when they voted, when this board of this GOP board voted to say that Fulton County 4 years ago did not conduct a reasonable inquiry into its vote. If this happened now, they can't change the vote for, they can't change Joe Biden's votes now, but they can change Kamala Harris's votes. Specifically, if they find once again that Fulton is still not conducting a reasonable inquiry of their votes,
right.
They will not certify Fulton, and that's Atlanta. Joe Biden won Fulton County by 242,000 votes. So there's your 11,000 plus some. And the problem is this fight over certification. In other words, you can't get a vote total from a state if you don't certify a county. And I've been warned. I was warned about this by Helen Butler, known as Mrs. Vote in Georgia. She was warning that they're going to try to stop certification in counties throughout the South, by the way, because other states, once something nasty happens in Georgia, it's imitated by all the red states.
Right.
It goes out. Already North Carolina passed a copycat law, but it's been held up by the courts. So you have swing state, and you have 5 states ready to pass these bills, which can start denying certification of the vote. This is basically what Mike Pence was asked to do. Don't certify the Electoral College votes.
Right. But
here it's just gone down to, because that's not working. It's gone down to the state level, and that's what they're doing. In fact, one of the 5 members of this GOP-controlled board last Saturday was at Donald Trump's rally. He called out the 3 members of the 3 MAGA crazies who are in control of the Board of Elections in Georgia. He called them out by name and said that they're wonderful people who are committed to honesty and victory. That's kind of unusual for what is supposed to be independent, impartial officials.
Basically a bureaucrat. Yeah.
And by the way, this Helen Butler, I would add one thing. When she did complain about the new processes, the very first act that Governor Brian Kemp did when SB 202 was passed, besides arresting Larry David for handing out a bottle of water, besides that, the nonfiction horror show is that his first act was to remove Helen Butler from the elections board.
Wow. So I'm guessing that you're familiar with the 60 some odd page document that Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington what did you say, Sean? That website was citizensforethics.org. I had their website wrong earlier. They just released this thing today. It was featured on Rachel Maddow's program last night. And they've gone through state by state in all the states where we've got these people who have essentially committed to refusing to certify elections, and found that in all of these states, it's actually against the law to do this, and people can be prosecuted, courts can intervene, quack, quack, quack. I'm wondering if Georgia officially changing their rules, does that conflict with the Georgia Constitution or Georgia state law, or is Georgia now the one state in the union where it will be legal for election officials to do this?
Well, obviously, I think we're going to see some real court action if they do try to refuse, basically not counting the vote in Atlanta.
Right.
Or play games where they, Helen Butler also warned us about where it's close to just be, basically yank 11,780 votes and disqualify those votes. That's the other way to do it. But the new law, SB 202, in effect, decriminalizes this activity. Yeah, it's a crime. That's why Trump's in the dock. And that's why Raffensperger, who was their Secretary of State, he's not a man for all seasons. He's a right-wing, highly partisan Republican, but he wasn't going to join Donald Trump in an orange suit.
Yeah, he didn't want to go to jail. That's why he refused to find those votes.
Yeah, he didn't want to go to the can for Donald Trump. It's like, and especially under state law, Trump couldn't even offer him a pardon.
Yeah.
So, but now he's been removed because he wouldn't do the nasty, and so there's a real question. I would, I don't want to say that this will hold up in a federal court, but look at our courts, look at our Supremes. The rules of voting are left up to each state
by the Constitution.
And, and so right now, basically, these MAGA nuts are saying that they would not have certified Atlanta in 2020, and so they're clearly setting up the grounds that that could reverse the vote if it's close.
That's interesting. I have heard, by the way, apropos of the pronunciation of MAGA, that some Republicans are saying it shouldn't be pronounced MAGA because that sounds too much like maggot, and therefore they want it to be pronounced as MAGA, which sounds kind of like mama or something. It's kind of a variation on Joe McCarthy's, never use the name Democratic Party because it sounds too nice. Always call it the Democrat Party with an emphasis on the rat. But it's interesting because I've heard you pronounce it both ways in this interview, the MAGA thing. You've got good people on the inside in Georgia. Are the Democrats prepared for this? Or how are they going to?
Democrats are definitely not prepared for this. But I have to say that you have great lawyers like Gerald Griggs, who's not only a lawyer for the Palast Investigative Fund, he's president of the NAACP. He's one of the top lawyers in this nation. We have some, there's really, and there's no question he is going to be suing over this. I just spoke with him.
Good.
But that doesn't, you can sue, but they have, even the federal courts have been deferring to Georgia state law.
Yeah. So
there's no right to vote in the Constitution or have your vote counted.
So we'll see how this plays out. You can read all about it over at gregpalast.com, Greg_Palast. He's got a Twitter thread on it too, over at Twitter, Greg_Palast. Greg, thanks so much for dropping by.
You're the best.
And I am really looking forward to seeing you on September 8th. So people check that.
Seeing you.
Check that out over at gregpalast.com as well. Thank you, Greg.
In Hollywood. Bye.
Bye.